If you stand anywhere in Nigeria today, in the hum of Lagos traffic, the calm of a northern evening, or the green fields of the east, you are standing on layers of history. Stories built over thousands of years. Stories of kings and warriors, traders and dreamers. Stories of struggle and of survival. This is not just the story of a country, this is the story of a people. Before Nigeria had a name, before lines were drawn on a map, this land was already alive. Alive with great civilizations, powerful kingdoms, and cultures that shaped the lives of millions. From the ancient Nok, who mastered iron, to the sacred city of Ife, where art came to life, to the mighty Benin Kingdom, whose walls amazed the world, and the empires of Kanem, Borno, and Oyo that ruled across vast lands. These were not forgotten tribes, they were nations, they were powers. Then came the caravans across the desert, gold, salt, and ideas moving from north to south, Islam spreading through trade and learning, and later ships from across the ocean, bringing new faces, new goods, and new dangers. What followed would change everything: a foreign flag, a new name, and a future decided far from home. Yet, even under colonial rule, the spirit of this land refused to die. Voices rose, movements grew, and in 1960, after long years of struggle, Nigeria stood up and claimed its freedom. But independence was only the beginning. The years that followed would test the nation, with coups and counter-coups, a painful civil war, decades of military rule, and the heavy weight of corruption and broken promises. Still, Nigeria endured through oil bombs and crashes, through protests and prayers, through moments that nearly broke the country apart. And today, Nigeria stands as Africa's giant, a land of over 200 million people, rich in culture, music, language, and endless energy. A nation full of problems, yes, but also full of hope. In this documentary, we will journey through it all, from the ancient kingdoms, to the coming of foreign powers, to the fight for independence, to the storms of war and military rule, and finally to the Nigeria of today. This is the story of how a land of many people became one nation. This is the entire history of Nigeria. Long before Nigeria was ever imagined as one country, this land was already home to great civilizations. Thousands of years ago, people here were shaping metal, building cities, and creating art that would outlive empires. Our story begins in the heart of the land with the Nok civilization. More than 2,000 years ago, the Nok people mastered ironworking, one of the earliest in all of Africa. They farmed the land, forged tools and weapons, and left behind mysterious terracotta sculptures, faces frozen in time, watching over history. No king's names remain, no written records survive, but their legacy lives on in the idea that this land was already advanced long before outsiders arrived. As centuries passed, new powers rose. To the southwest, a city unlike any other emerged: Ife. Ife was more than a city, it was a sacred place, a spiritual heart of the Yoruba people. Here, artists created bronze and terracotta heads so realistic that when Europeans first saw them centuries later, they refused to believe Africans could have made them, but they did. Ife was ruled by sacred kings, the Oni, believed to be chosen by the gods themselves. From Ife grew traditions, culture, and authority that shaped much of Yoruba land. And from Ife's shadow rose a kingdom that would stun the world: the Benin Kingdom. Benin was a city of order and power, wide streets, royal palaces, and massive earth walls, some of the largest man-made structures on earth at the time. At its center stood the Oba of Benin, a king whose word was law. Benin's artists cast bronze plaques and heads that told stories of battles, rituals, and royal life. These artworks were not just decoration, they were history in metal. For centuries, Benin controlled trade, defended its borders, and built a system of governance that kept the kingdom strong. Far to the north, beyond the forest and savannah, another power was rising: the Kanem Borno Empire. For over 1,000 years, Kanem Borno stood as one of Africa's longest lasting empires. Its rulers controlled routes across the Sahara Desert, linking West Africa to North Africa and the wider Islamic world. Here, Islam took root early. Scholars taught in courts, books were written, and kings known as the Mai ruled with both spiritual and political authority. Kanem Borno was not isolated, it was connected to the world. To the southwest again, another giant emerged, the Oyo Empire. Oyo became the most powerful Yoruba state of its time. Its strength came from organization and from horses. With a strong cavalry, Oyo expanded across vast lands, collecting tribute and controlling trade routes. But Oyo was not ruled by force alone. The Alaafin, the king, was powerful but not absolute. Councils and chiefs could challenge him, even remove him. It was an early form of balance of power, a reminder that leadership came with responsibility. Across the land, from the Niger Delta to the Middle Belt, many other people flourished. The Igbo with their republican village systems, the TIV, the Ibibio, the Ijaw, and countless others, each with their own ways of life, leadership, and culture. There was no single Nigeria. There were many nations, many identities, many stories. Sometimes they traded, sometimes they fought, but they lived, grew, and shaped the land in their own image. These kingdoms did not see themselves as part of one future country. They could not imagine a name called Nigeria. Yet, everything they built, their cities, their systems, their beliefs, would become the foundation of a nation still to come. By the time foreign influences began to knock on these shores, this land was not empty. It was full of power, full of pride, full of history, and the world was about to take notice. For centuries, the lands that would become Nigeria were not cut off from the world, they were connected. Long before ships touched the southern coast, caravans were already crossing the vast Sahara Desert. Slow lines of camels moving through sand and heat, carrying more than just goods, they carried ideas. From the north came traders from North Africa and beyond, bringing salt, clothes, books, and horses. From the south and savannah came gold, leather, kola nuts, and slaves. These routes linked places like Kanem Borno and Hausa city-states, Kano, Katsina, Zaria, to great centers of learning and trade across the Islamic world. And with trade came Islam, not by the sword, but mostly through merchants and scholars. Mosques rose in ancient cities. Arabic became the language of learning. Kings adopted the faith and courts welcomed scholars. Cities like Kano became hubs of commerce and knowledge, where markets were busy by day and lessons were taught by night. Islam did not erase local cultures, blended with them, shaping laws, education, and leadership across much of northern Nigeria. Then, from the south, another kind of contact arrived. In the late 1400s, Portuguese ships appeared along the coast of the Niger Delta and the Bight of Benin. To the people on land, these strangers came from the edge of the sea, with strange clothes, new weapons, and goods never seen before. They brought mirrors, clothes, guns, and alcohol, and they wanted what Africa had. At first, trade was simple: pepper, ivory, palm products. Kings and merchants welcomed the new opportunities. The Benin Kingdom in particular formed early relations with the Portuguese. Ambassadors were exchanged. Christian missionaries even visited the royal court. But slowly, the nature of trade changed. Demand grew for one thing above all else: human beings. The transatlantic slave trade began to reshape the coast. European forts and trading posts appeared. Local middlemen rose, and wars were encouraged to capture more people. Over time, millions were taken from the wider region, forced onto ships across the ocean into a life of bondage. Families were torn apart, communities were emptied, trust was broken. This trade did not start from Europe alone. It survived because local powers were drawn into it, sometimes for survival, sometimes for profit. But the cost was enormous. While some kingdoms gained wealth and weapons, the land itself bled people. By the 1800s, the slave trade began to fade, but Europe's interest in Africa did not. It only changed shape. Traders now wanted palm oil, peanuts, rubber, raw materials to feed their growing industries. And with trade came influence. With influence came control. The age of merchants was slowly giving way to the age of empire, and Nigeria was moving closer to a turning point it could not avoid. By the late 19th century, Europe was changing fast. Factories were rising, machines were roaring, and the hunger for raw materials was growing. Across the seas, Africa was no longer seen just as a place to trade, but a place to take. This was the age of the scramble for Africa. Powerful European nations rushed to divide the continent among themselves, drawing lines on maps of lands they barely knew. And in the lands that would become Nigeria, one power was determined to win: Britain. At first, British influence came through traders and companies, especially along the Niger River. The most powerful of them was the Royal Niger Company, a private business with its own army, its own treaties, and its own ambitions. Through deals, many forced or misunderstood local rulers were pushed to give up control of their lands. When resistance came, it was crushed. By the early 1900s, the British government took over directly, turning these territories into colonies. But this land was vast and diverse, hundreds of peoples, different languages, religions, and systems of rule. To make it easier to control, Britain decided on a bold move. In 1914, the northern and southern protectorates were merged into one colony. They called it Nigeria, a name created by a British woman, Flora Shaw. It was not a union of choice, it was a union of convenience. From that moment, many nations were forced into one. In the north, Britain ruled indirectly, keeping emirs in power, using existing systems to control the people. In the south, especially among the Igbo and coastal peoples, they ruled more directly, creating new chiefs and structures where none had existed before. This uneven system planted deep seeds of division. Colonial rule changed everything. Traditional economies were reshaped to serve British needs. Cash crops replaced food crops. Railways and roads were built, not to unite the people, but to move goods to the ports. Western education spread. Mission schools taught reading and writing. Christianity grew in many parts of the south. A new class emerged: clerks, teachers, lawyers, Africans who could speak the language of their rulers. But while some opportunities appeared, freedom disappeared. Taxes were imposed, land was taken, customs were ignored, and when people resisted, they were met with force. From the burning of Benin in 1897 to revolts in the east and west, to everyday quiet defiance across villages, the message was clear: Nigeria was under foreign control. Yet, colonialism also created something new. For the first time, people from different regions began to meet. In schools, offices, and cities, they started to see themselves not just as Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo, Ijo, but as something broader: Nigerians. By the early 20th century, voices began to rise. Newspapers criticized colonial rule, workers organized, students debated freedom. The idea of independence was no longer a dream, it was becoming a demand. But before Nigeria could walk its own path, it would have to face the heavy legacy of a country built not by its people, but by empire. By the end of the Second World War, the world was changing. Empires were weakening, and across Africa, people were no longer willing to be ruled from far away. In Nigeria, a new generation had found its voice. Men and women educated in mission schools and abroad returned home with ideas of freedom and self-rule. Newspapers challenged colonial policies, trade unions organized workers, political parties were formed. Three names would soon stand out: Nnamdi Azikiwe, Obafemi Awolowo, and Ahmadu Bello. Each spoke for a different region, each dreamed of a better Nigeria, but each also carried the hopes and fears of their own people. Through debates, protests, and negotiations, Britain slowly began to loosen its grip. Constitutions were written, elections were held, and Nigerians started to govern themselves step by step. Then came the moment many had waited for. On October 1st, 1960, Nigeria became independent. The British flag came down, the green and white rose in its place, and a new nation was born. There was joy in the streets, pride in the air, and hope in every heart. Nigeria began as a parliamentary democracy, with Abubakar Tafawa Balewa as Prime Minister and Nnamdi Azikiwe as Governor General, later becoming the first president. But from the very start, cracks were already showing. The country was divided into regions: North, West, and East, each dominated by powerful parties and leaders. Politics quickly became a battle of regions, not ideas. Census figures were disputed, elections were accused of being rigged, minorities felt ignored, and trust between leaders slowly faded. In the West, political crisis turned violent. In the East and North, fears of domination grew. By 1963, Nigeria became a republic, cutting the last formal tie to the British crown. But the dream of unity was sleeping. What was meant to be a nation built on cooperation was becoming one held together by tension. Many Nigerians still believed they wanted democracy to work. They wanted the promise of independence to be fulfilled. But beneath the celebrations and speeches, the system was weakening. And in the shadows, another force was watching: the military. Within a few short years, guns would replace ballots, and Nigeria's young democracy will be put to its hardest test. Nigeria's early democracy was young and fragile. By January 1966, frustration and suspicion had reached a boiling point. Corruption, regional tension, and political rivalry had weakened the nation's foundation. Then came the first military coup. Soldiers, believing they were saving the country from collapse, seized power. Prime Minister Tafawa Balewa and several regional leaders were killed. The nation trembled. The dream of peaceful democracy seemed shattered overnight, but the turmoil didn't end there. Within months, a counter-coup took place, plunging Nigeria even deeper into chaos. Ethnic mistrust spread like wildfire. Northerners feared domination by the South. Southerners feared reprisals. Amidst the chaos, the nation faced its darkest chapter, the Biafran War, also known as the Nigerian Civil War. In 1967, the Eastern region declared independence as the Republic of Biafra. The reasons were complex, political, economic, and deeply personal, but at the heart lay fear, injustice, and a struggle for survival. The war would last 3 long years. Cities burned, families starved, millions suffered. It was a conflict that tested not just the strength of Nigeria, but the humanity of its people. Yet, even in the darkest hours, acts of courage and resilience shone through. Neighbors risked everything to protect each other. Communities rebuilt what they could, and despite the horror, hope endured. In 1970, Biafra was reintegrated into Nigeria. The war had ended, but the scars remained. Nigeria had survived, battered but unbroken. From these trials, lessons were learned. The importance of unity became painfully clear. The dangers of regionalism, mistrust, and weak governance were etched into the national memory. Military rule would dominate the next decade, but the spirit of the people could not be crushed. Nigeria continued to grow, adapt, and strive for stability. And slowly, the nation began to dream again of democracy restored, of a future brighter than the past, of a Nigeria that could rise from conflict into hope. After decades of military rule, coups, and conflict, Nigeria began a new chapter. In 1999, democracy returned. Elections brought civilian government to power, and once again, Nigerians held hope in their hands. Today, Nigeria is a country of over 220 million people, a mosaic of cultures, languages, and traditions. From the bustling streets of Lagos to the markets of Kano, the oil fields of the Niger Delta to the hills of the Middle Belt, life pulses with energy, resilience, and creativity. Yet, challenges remain. Corruption, inequality, and regional tensions test the nation every day. But in the face of adversity, Nigerians continue to innovate, create, and inspire. Music, film, literature, and technology now flow from Nigeria to the world, shaping culture far beyond its borders. The story of Nigeria is not just one of struggle, it is one of endurance, not just of problems, but of possibility. From the ancient kingdoms that carved civilizations out of forests and savannas, to the traders and scholars who connected the land to the world, to the colonial rulers who tried to shape it, to the brave voices demanding independence, to the lessons of war and turmoil, Nigeria has survived, evolved, and continues to rise. Every generation adds its chapter. Every challenge brings a new lesson. Every citizen carries a part of this story forward. And so, as we look at the Nigeria of today, full of hope, full of potential, one thing is clear: the journey is far from over. The story of Nigeria is not just history, it is living, breathing, and ongoing. And in every corner of this great nation, the echoes of the past reminds us that unity, courage, and resilience will always shape its future.